What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate. And as always, we are brought to you in part by collegefootballdogs.com, continuing to bring you out the content as our writers continue to hammer out new stories every day on both the pro and college side. So don't let the name fool you as we get going there. As always, presented by W Energy down below as Marv blocks the screen there right now. But we have a promo code for you at W if you use SB Syndicate at checkout. And we are part of Dog TV as we get rolling along to add that tab to the website as our shows will all go live there as well. Guys, welcome into the show. How are we doing tonight?
Good, man.
Good to be here.
Good, man. Good. Not loving the rain, but I guess it's a good thing that most of our teams didn't go on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, app got postponed yesterday.
Yeah, that's true.
Early.
That's true.
They moved start times for this week up as well, this weekend.
Did they?
5 o'clock first pitch tomorrow and Friday.
Huh.
Interesting.
It stinks.
Not real sure why.
You going to that one?
I'll be there for Saturday's 1 o'clock game. My oldest son's got a baseball game Friday night, so we'll head up the mountain Saturday, catch the third game.
Nice. Very nice. Seth, you going to pay $15 to go see all three games this weekend?
Hey, you don't have to pay if you hop a shuttle all the way across Boone to get there.
Oh, well, there you go.
Parking's terrible this year. Terrible.
So you said there's construction going on. Is that why?
Yeah, they've cleared the entire area. They're putting in some type of sustainable development, some type of thing going on with that up there.
Okay. We've got our number one fan, Artie Cat, joining the show, our resident Texas State fan. He's saying, hi, y'all. What's up, Artie? Thanks for joining us tonight. Guys, we talked about it before. It's not just affecting App State. It's not just affecting JMU, but after they're the top two finishers in the basketball thing, let's just touch on that real quick. How crazy is this, and how much is it going to destroy mid-major college athletics?
I mean, kind of already seen it in football. A lot of these G5 teams in the past have kind of prided themselves on being developmental teams. You get a diamond in the rough out of high school, you develop them and turn them into a star player. Now you get a kid who's a stud and shows out as a freshman and he's gone. But, I mean, App State specifically, we just lost 8 players, 1 to graduation, 7 in the portal. That's
9. When we went to the commercial break a minute ago, I was looking at my phone. Harkham's in the portal now too.
Jeez.
They've lost literally everybody.
That's probably 98% of our points from the season.
Yeah.
That's
I hate it.
I mean, obviously, JMU losing a coach, that's expected, but unless Kearns is going somewhere, that's going to be a devastating blow for App State basketball, who seemed like it maybe had kind of started to get on the rise, and now it's unless the portal is just as kind to us as it's been brutal right now, it's going to be tough.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
It's like, when you see mass exodus for App's situation, especially, you have to wonder if like the coach is on the move or not. But so far, It's like what Seth has been saying that we've been hearing, or he's been hearing specifically, like he's not supposed to be moving. So what's going on in the background here that we've got all these guys leaving? There's no way that one season of success leads all these guys to get all these crazy offers to go play elsewhere for more money, or money in general, because I'm sure there wasn't really much of any deals being struck at App State, right? I mean, I'm not aware of any of those guys getting any kind of great NIL deals besides like a burger at a local restaurant or something, right?
Right. No, doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
And some of those guys, App specifically, they're in the portal, were not star players, if you will. Right. They were definitely good contributors, but no one that you think a ACC school is going to come and pick up, and whether it's an NIL deal or not, it's just it's terrible. I can see why some of the great coaches are starting to get out of the game, because it's just not the same anymore.
Yeah, I think this situation in particular is a little bit different, though. Like Dominic was saying, like this isn't just 1 or 2 guys. This is literally
the roster,
7/8 of your entire team. Yes.
Tough.
Minus some walk-ons. I mean, that's it. All you have left is some walk-ons at this point.
Yeah. Isn't what's the kid that got the scholarship that was local there? Seth, is he a senior
Brian
too?
Green. He graduates.
Yeah, so that's another guy gone. Not for transfer portal, obviously, but
I mean, your team is literally depleted.
Yeah, you were completely starting over.
What did how many did James Madison lose?
So far, I think at least 3 or 4.
All right, so
that's only on the portal side. That's not including anybody who's graduating over there. Which, off the top of my head, I think there was at least 1 graduation on that team.
Where did their coach go again?
Vanderbilt.
It's not a bad job.
No, not for the money's going to be great, and the facilities are nice. The thing that's crazy to me is now Arkansas State season is over. Right, they were in the CBI. They were on a long run, looking pretty good in that tournament. Controversial ending versus High Point last night. What happens with that squad? I mean, you got a coach there who seems to be kind of an up-and-comer, a team in Arkansas State who got hot there in the tournament. They have some really, really talented players. Caleb Fields, probably their most talented player all the way around, does lose eligibility due to graduation. He's not going to be transferring. But it remains to be seen what other talent in the Sun Belt will be picked apart. I mean, it happened last year with Marshall. You know, they had Han Logden, who went down to Florida, who was kind of starting to make a name for himself before he broke his ankle before NCAA tournament. You had I'm going blank on his name, but we had the guy down in Louisiana who transferred up to, I think it was Memphis, had all kind of issues and didn't see the floor much at all this year. In fact, I think he was suspended off the team for some period of time. But yeah, I mean, it just looks like for basketball, it's worse than anywhere else because you don't have the roster size. We were talking about that too, right? Like you don't have 53 guys and you go, well, if we lose 10 or 11, it's okay. We can replace them. That's all that's on your roster for basketball. So
yeah, that's all you got.
Yeah, it's I don't know. That's like I said, app specifically. That's devastating. That's who knows? Maybe like I said, maybe the portal taketh and giveth. I don't know. True. It is possible, but I will say it's an uphill battle, and you guys know this, and there's other Sun Belt schools that are involved in this too. Not the easiest place to just swing a basketball recruit to come up, right? You're not at the beach. You're not at a warm destination where you're going to be playing and everyone it's like, it's hot. Let's go inside and watch this basketball game. You got the opposite of that going on. You've got to fight people that you have to get bundled up and drive over to go see a basketball game and win them over. And that's, as we've seen, not easy to do here. Guys, did you see me embarrass myself as a little battle rap hype video? Big Ten backers. No. Big Ten backers are talking about that. Jinxed the bracket. It jinxed a couple things for me. I didn't have any like big money riding on it for James Madison, but I was just mainly having fun with it. It wasn't even a big to do for me. I just kind of thought of a couple lines real quick, put it together. Actually took me longer to edit the video than to either write the thing or shoot the video itself. So yeah, I don't know. Scoreboard fixed at Vandy. I think that's they got the construction going on at their football stadium, right, like App did a couple years ago. But yeah, he continues to say going to be a lot of pushing Sunbelt players and all Power 6 programs. Yeah, I think in basketball, like we just said, it's going to be a lot more obvious there than anywhere else. And he's correcting himself. Group of 6 instead of Power 6. And now there's only Power 4, right, guys? Yeah. The Pac-12 no longer exists.
Nope, not at all. We got Neil jumping in. I'm a big App State fan. The portal has killed our momentum and our team. There's absolutely zero doubt about that. But hey, let's get to why we all came here. We'll round back into stuff if people have more comments or questions. But we are into the second week of Sun Belt action, and hopefully we can keep this rolling along here because I've added a few more graphics. But obviously now we've already had some midweeks this week. So this is actually last Tuesday's scores. Just real quick, and if you guys want to see any that you want to pick out and just talk about real quick, we'll kind of hammer through the midweeks and then get into what happened last week and then what we expect to kind of look at this week too.
A lot of close games that didn't go, the Sun Belt's way. South Alabama losing by a run to Auburn. Georgia State loses to Georgia Tech by 2. Coastal loses in the 9th to NC State. A lot of games that could have gone our way and maybe should have. But, yeah, kind of what you expect, I guess, out of some midweeks when you're playing some quote-unquote bigger schools.
What's that Georgia State record? They're surprising us a little bit, aren't they?
Georgia State's second conference right now. I actually had that pulled up.
We have here, actually.
They're 13-11 overall, but they're 5-1 in conference.
There we go.
There we go. There's the standings as we talk about them, and we can jump back and forth a little bit. But, yeah, like Marv said, very surprising in-conference record for them to start with. When you look at and compare their overall record to everybody else, they should be towards the bottom. But in conference, 5-1.
I wrote this down. I was looking. 9 of our teams in this conference have 15-plus wins, and only one team has a losing record.
Yeah,
it's pretty incredible.
And
don't tell any of the bigger schools how great we are in baseball, because they'll poach our players too.
Yeah, no kidding, right? It's just insanity. But yeah, I think you're right. And the one thing I did want to check on, and I forgot to do it, was to compare this conference currently with the win-loss aspect of each team to some of the bigger conferences. You know, I think it's interesting, and I bet it would be difficult to find a conference that's better than the Sun Belt right now, with how many teams have winning records versus losing records.
I mean, look at that. Louisiana, Georgia State, Southern Miss, Texas State, Coastal, App, Troy, JMU, South Alabama. Like, those are all really quality programs. You wouldn't want to play anyone in the weekend series.
Do you think there's a possibility we get more than 4 this year into a regional?
What was it, 5 last year?
It was 5 last year. I think 5 will be tough again, to be honest with you, especially if we continue to beat each other up in conference. But I think there's almost no doubt that the Sun Belt should get 4, unless people just completely fall apart here. But 5 will be tough. I think 6 would be nearly impossible.
Yeah, it would be. But man, it's we talked about it a little bit before. We're kind of diving into other teams in the Sun Belt. You kind of knew who your traditional powers were, but there's just a lot of talent and a lot of good baseball teams.
Yeah,
I think the most interesting team, and we talk about this quite a bit each week, is who's the real Georgia Southern.
Right?
Have we figured Georgia Southern out yet?
I don't think so. I don't think either. Yeah, their conference record or their overall record doesn't tell you enough yet. 3-3, 11-12.
Right. When we think they're slow, we think they're on the downside here. They come right back.
Yep.
Yeah. I was thinking the exact same thing. I mean, it's for them to go to Southern Miss, or no, that was at Georgia Southern, but still to take 2 out of 3, you get Southern Miss. Yeah. Pretty impressive.
Yep.
App taking 2 or 3 from Coastal. Does that say more about App, or does that say more about Coastal? Coastal came into that game on a 3-game losing streak, 4-game losing streak. No,
we know they lost.
They lost to State, but they won the last game against JMU. So
yeah, and they won 2 out of 3 against JMU. So I don't know. 2 weeks in, and still a lot of questions.
I think there's still a lot of questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrew's a resident South Carolina native. He's a South Carolina fan first and foremost, but he's also saying Coastal's been to dominate. They may pick it up. This week's mid week matchup that did not happen for them could have told us a lot lot about just jumping back in here. Yes, supposed to be a Clemson. Number 3 Clemson is what it should have been. So, unfortunately,
Clemson with a big weekend. Did you see their past weekend?
I saw that they won. I forget exactly who it was off the top of my head.
They swept Florida State. Florida State was undefeated.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
What did Coastal drop to in the rankings? They're not 13.
They are now 19. But I go by, for anyone wondering, I go by what the NCAA website gives you. So that just so I stay consistent throughout the year. I know that there's different ones that have a slightly different rankings. In one group of rankings, they completely fell out, which honestly I kind of expected with 2 straight losses to App and then a struggle to win that last one in extra innings.
Almost a sweep.
Yeah, pretty close to being a sweep.
Could have, should have been, in some regards, really, if you talk about it that way.
I think I asked the question a couple weeks ago, who was Coastal, and I think I'll give you my bold prediction. I believe Coastal maybe third or fourth in the conference by the time it's all said and done this year.
Yeah. Which ultimately would be surprising. However, as long as it gets them to regionals, which honestly, as good as this conference is, I feel like they could still get there even with a third or fourth place finish. That's still a team you don't want to run into,
No, they've got ULM this weekend. They can potentially get back on. They should, they could potentially get back on track. But I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as Seth and say third or fourth. I still think they're top one or two.
I think they're at least four behind Southern Miss and Texas State right now.
Louisiana's the hottest team in the conference. They won 8 games in a row.
There you go.
Dang, you stole my thunder, Marv. Come on, man. I was saving that one.
Sorry. So, Artie Cat, you were 100% correct. I was going through the box scores for each series. Georgia State this weekend averaged less than 300 people at their home games.
I will tell you this. I don't know how relevant it is to what people know already, because he's talking about they need a major facility renovation. There is one in the works. At least drawings are submitted. They're out there. You can go find them. It's going to look phenomenal. I'm not sure seating capacity and how that will change and everything, but it is coming. And you're right. It's bad. It's not good. And that's going to Marv's point too about why people aren't showing up. Think about how many people go to high school baseball games in your traditional baseball's okay kind of markets. Obviously in Texas, it's probably a different story as we've seen with their football programs. But 300 people, how many kids are running around by the parking lot, while they're counted as a person too, I
was going to make a joke and say that's about as many people as they had at their home football game against App this year.
Ooh, yeah.
Is it really that bad? I assume they play on campus.
I don't know if they do because it's right downtown. I feel like I don't know. It's a good question. Yo boy Carr saying, "Watch out for Coastal. They may make it to the championship game and cancel it due to COVID." They will never ever live down COVID Carolina. Never ever ever.
That comment will never get old.
Andrew says scored 9 in the ninth in a comeback win. Clemson is scary. Yeah, you've got a South Carolina fan telling you that, that's the truth. Already saying it's not a traditional campus. It's very bad compared to baseball and even football or basketball, I guess is probably what he means there, right?
Can we just give a shout out to Artie for being here every single night?
Yeah, dude.
We appreciate it, man.
We get Artie over
really appreciate it.
Yeah. Artie and Neil are the top two from football, basketball, baseball. They're always showing up. I love the fact that they love this conference as much. It's obvious that they love it as much as we do, and they love their teams, obviously, even more so than that. But, yeah, I'm very thankful for the views, the comments, the interactions, because that's what keeps us rolling here. Speaking of keeping us rolling, very few games on Wednesday. We had a rematch from earlier this season as Marshall went up against West Virginia. They got trounced pretty bad this time, though, 15-0. Obviously, that's a little backyard rivalry there. Not quite to the extent of West Virginia and Pitt, but they don't like each other much, being both in the same state and battling for those fan bases and viewers. We had Arkansas State go down to Southern Illinois. Again, this is one of those midweeks where you're nothing's really shocking, but I would have probably picked Arkansas State to win that one on paper. And then the Cajuns take care of their in-state little brother, I guess you could call it, with McNeese State coming into town. They take care of them 4-1. So not a good Wednesday overall, but we did have the Cajuns, again, the hottest team in the conference right now, taking a victory home there. We'll bring back up the standings real quick before we get into last night's games that were from this week's midweek. Anything to really point out here, guys, stands out to you any further than what we already discussed?
Yeah, you need a flip-flop App and Coastal because App went 2 out of 3 against Coastal. So in a conference tiebreaker, App would be ahead of them. Just wanted to –
That's a good point.
Rub that salt in just a little bit.
I wonder how they're – I wonder how they're doing that because I just went off
– They're doing it based off of overall wins and not taking into consideration who beat who in the conference.
It makes sense only to some regard.
I don't like that.
No, actually, no, they're not doing it because they got Troy under App, but Troy has more overall wins than App. So I don't know what they're doing. Maybe it's a popularity contest.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to look into that because I didn't even as I'm going through and making the graphic, that's actually something I didn't really pick up on. Interesting. All right.
So just the App left column. That's all it boils down to.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so last night's games, we had the Sun Belt overall go 8-2, as Fun Belt Sports on Twitter pointed out. I had not really done them. I realized that we won a whole lot more than we lost. I just hadn't counted them up. Hopefully, App would have beaten Asheville, and hopefully Coastal could have stood a chance to beat Clemson. Not going to be easy, but that could have been one hell of an amazing night if you go 10-2 against the competition. Really, the only disappointing one or surprising one in any regard to me is La Tech and ULM, which it didn't shock me that La Tech won that one. But I didn't really expect Barfel to go in and beat Virginia Tech. So that one wasn't a surprise, I guess.
No, La Tech's a good baseball team. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had for our West Side fans, although we don't have an East and West in baseball, as we know. But Southern Miss took on Tulane. There's no love lost between Tulane and a number of teams in this conference, but Southern Miss and Tulane have something extra special as they have a rivalry, a trophy game, I guess you would call it, in football. And I'm sure that continues whenever they match up in basketball and certainly in baseball. So it's cool to see them take that one over Tulane by 5 runs. Cajuns take it to Grambling 12-4. James Madison run rules Radford, if you don't recognize that logo. A couple of the teams that won handily, and that's pretty good to see. The one to note here that was probably the most exciting was South Alabama Jaguars winning in walk-off fashion over Alabama State. Had to come back from behind there in the bottom of the 9th inning to win that one 10-9. So, and it was the final game of the night. So it was a nice kind of way to round out Tuesday's action. Again, no games tonight. We get back into action tomorrow night. But before we do that, we're going to round out the series from this past weekend as we had App State. Oh, I didn't fix that graphic there. Well, they went 2-1 against Coastal Carolina. I don't know how I didn't catch that. The stuff on the side's right, but the series total is not there. At the time, Coastal Carolina was ranked 13th in the conference. Marv, you want to take it from there with this one?
Yeah.
The Seth thing. I can't remember.
Yeah, Seth.
Do what? I went to Sunday's doubleheader, the first game of a doubleheader. Great attendance. App pulled it out. Each game was back and forth. Friday night, it would have been Saturday's game. Friday night's game got postponed to Sunday. So App went down 5-0 in the first inning and battled back all the way through the game. And at each game, just as close as it could. Well, Sunday's doubleheader got a little out of hand, but 2 evenly matched teams, 9-8, 16-8, and then the last one was a heartbreaker Sunday night. I think we were all watching that. Yeah. Coastal broke it open in the 12th.
Yeah.
Is that score correct?
No, that last score.
That 9-8?
17-11 was the final.
You know what? I don't know what I did here. Yeah, that's definitely not correct. That final score was 17-11. Yeah, I screwed up all that one. I'll probably change the graphics. It was a great series. I thought I enjoyed watching every single game of it.
Yeah, that was a great series. Just some interesting stuff that I saw from that. Like you said, Seth, in the first game, App's down 6-0 at one point. Scored 9 runs in the 6th and 7th inning. Coastal walked 8 batters in that game. Hard to win when you're given 8 free passes.
Yeah.
Second game, completely different. App jumps out 5-0. Coastal gets 8 runs in the 6th and 7th, and App has to come back and put 3 up in the bottom of the 8th to get the win. And then the last game, 39 total hits in the game. Just absolute crazy. Back and forth battle. And like you said, Seth, Coastal puts up 5 in the top of the 12th, and App couldn't get anything going. But, man, what a good series. Had a chance to get the sweep. Proud of the boys for battling back in game 1. credit them for staying in when Coastal surged back in game 2 and almost had them. But I think, Dominic, you said, how the program is kind of building. First ever win in San Marcos last weekend. And is this the first time we've taken a series from Coastal?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
First ever time. We took our first series ever from Louisiana last year, Coastal this year. Like you said, the San Marcos victory. Program's stepping in the right direction. And honestly, it's kind of crazy that they're doing it when they're not even, the best team in the conference kind of thing. So definitely making some headway, though. Tully
Thanks, Tully, yeah.
That dude went off. Austin had a pretty good weekend, too.
Austin went 5 for 6 in the last game. But, hey, App player gets Offensive Player of the Week this week. Zamora. Yeah, he went 10 for 18 on the weekend, 4 doubles, a triple, scored 3 times, 10 RBIs. When you're getting that kind of production out of your non-hitter, you're going to have a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, I'd say so. Let me get out of this graphic since it's wrong anyway. All right. So as we see, the one thing that I did get right in the graphic was that they were number 13. They are now number 19 in the country, according to the D1 baseball rankings from NCAA.com. Coastal Carolina, as Marv already mentioned, match up with ULM. So they got a good chance to rebound this weekend. App State has a chance to keep it rolling. I know that they technically ended with a loss, but I think they felt like they could have possibly taken that last one. So they're going to keep the good vibes rolling as they host Marshall up in Boone this weekend. The Coastal Series, does anyone know off the top of their head if that one's home or away for them? I can check real quick if not.
Right now, I got it written down.
I believe it's in Conway.
No, that's in Monroe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that'll be a little more challenging, but
makes up for those 20 straight games Coastal had at home to begin the season.
Yeah. App gets back-to-back home series to make up for the 17 straight road games they had to start the season.
Yeah. By the way, I'll just go ahead and say this. If I get real choppy or break up, let me know because I'll switch the internet. Right now, I'm hearing the thunder and hard rain on the house, so let me know.
I might switch over to the telephone here in a minute. I'm getting a little choppy too.
Okay. But, yeah, just let me know if it gets real bad, but I'll try and stay on the internet because it should be a little bit better. Before we move on, Artie Cat just wants us to let them know University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, the longest name in Division I athletics, did just announce that they're moving to this Southland Conference. Yeah, and that's a little bit of a surprise with where a lot of people thought they would have gone. But, again, that's a move kind of like the Sun Belt has done with more regional teams that more people want to see. They're closer to, they care about more. So good for them in that regard. The next series we had, mostly in alphabetical order as far as a couple of teams go, by the way. Arkansas State going down to Marshall, 2-1 in favor of the Herd here, 6-2, 9-6, and 6-4 in 14 innings. The Red Wolves finally get one on their side to end on Sunday with. Guys, whose one is this one? I know I have Marshall. Who had Arkansas State?
Yeah, I've got Arkansas State.
Okay.
So first game, 6-2, goes to Marshall. Marshall jumped out to a 6-0 lead and kind of cruised after that. Starting pitcher through 6 innings, only gave up 5 hits and 1 run. So, they've had some good pitching this year, which kind of surprises me to where they are in the standings. Second game, Marshall wins 9-6. Arkansas State scores 4 in the 9th to make it interesting, but just not enough. Both teams had 12 hits in the game, so the bats were going. And then in the series, end of the series, goes 14 innings like you have there. Arkansas State gets 2 in the top of the 14th. Both teams had 11 hits, and the starting pitcher for Arkansas State threw 7.2 innings, 9 Ks, but he did hit 4 batters.
Whew.
Yeah.
Hey, Marv, was the player of the week last year? Is that Marshall's Friday or the pitcher of the week? Is that Marshall's Friday night guy?
It was. You know what? I think he's their Saturday night guy.
Okay.
Either way, their Friday and Saturday night guy this weekend threw great games. Their starter in that 9-6 win, I think he only gave up 2 runs and threw 6 innings. So they're getting good, long productive starts from their starting pitching. Like I said, I'm surprised that their record's not better than what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Chad had told us the other week as he saw them live. Well, I don't know if he saw them live, but he obviously took in all the games and was very impressed with what Marshall could do and thought they'd be kind of sneaky good here pretty soon in the conference. But I don't know if Arkansas State's a big tell of how that's going to go, but obviously it is considered an upset at this point with where Marshall is and where Arkansas State is. So it's good that the Herd continue to put some more in the win column because they certainly haven't had a whole lot of luck with that on the outside of conference aspect. Looking ahead.
Who's our bottom dweller right now? Would that be Monroe?
Marshall.
Marshall is, yeah.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only team in the conference with a losing record.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, but they are well, let's just jump it back here. Whoops, one too many. They're tied with Arkansas State as far as conference record goes. They're actually we got a lot of teams at 2-4. I didn't realize how many we had. We have 6 teams currently tied at 2-4 for conference standings. But obviously, those aren't all created equal. And once we get a couple more weeks in here, it's really going to start to separate. But, yeah, a lot of teams right there all with each other towards the bottom. We'll see how it plays out. All right. So we already talked about this matchup a little bit. Obviously, the Herd matchup with App State in Boone. Arkansas State matches up with Georgia Southern. That could be a real interesting matchup as you've got Georgia State sitting there at 3-3 and Arkansas State sitting there at 2-4. Definitely both teams could take a chunk out of where they need to be by sweep this weekend. I don't know if I see a sweep
series for sure.
Yeah, that might be one we have to predict because it's definitely not a clear and obvious winner on either side, I'd say.
That's I don't think so in Jonesboro too.
You said they struggle with attendance too, right?
Yeah, they're doing better than Georgia State. I know I hated on Georgia State a couple of weeks ago. Now they're second in the conference, but when I was going through some of the box scores, by the way, are really funny because it'll have the attendance and then it'll have the weather for the game. So the Marshall series just last weekend, first game it said very, very cloudy was the weather.
Very, very cloudy.
The second game it said very, very cloudy yet again. And then the last game it said a little bit nicer.
Wow. That's awesome.
Just go to I think it was Marshall's website that I went to and just clicked on box score and you can go to them. It's sometimes comical.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. Before we get back into it here, already had mentioned, Marshall had the series upset. Yo Boy Carr says it's crazy different how softball and baseball are. Baseball, anyone can beat anyone. Yeah, I think that's true. Honestly, I feel like that's true in women's sports in general, to be honest.
Softball, you can use the same pitcher all week, right?
Ooh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know.
You don't ever have to change pitchers in softball, do you?
They don't have a pitch count like baseball and everything?
I mean, you see the same girl throwing, when I do watch it, it's the same girl usually throwing all the time.
I guess it's like maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I've never once heard of a softball pitcher having Tommy Johns, right? Because the pitching mechanics are completely different.
Yeah, and there's no pitch counts in college baseball. There are in youth sports, but you're not going to throw your Friday arm on Friday and then throw them on Sunday. You're just not going to do it.
Right. I thought there was. So there's no pitch count in college baseball.
I don't think so. I could be. I know we'll get to it here in a little while, but the Georgia Southern Sunday starter threw 112 pitches in a complete game.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy. I did not realize that. I thought there was. He says softball is who will win before they even play most of the time. I was going to say the thing I was going to equate it to is the NCAA basketball tournament is happening right now. That's one of the most obvious things. For the most part, if you did a bracket challenge for the women's sport, the women's portion of that, and you went completely chalk, odds are you're going to do really, really well. You're not going to win every game. There will be some upsets. But I feel like that sport is one of those ones where the top teams are always going to be the top teams when it comes to tournament time. And maybe softball's kind of like that. I haven't watched enough of it, but it seems to make sense where the talent disparity between the power programs and the mid-major whatevers is quite a bit more evident in the women's game than it is in the men's. I don't know. Does it feel that way?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very much.
He says 14 innings is crazy, and Artie is telling us that Texas State softball is number 23 in the nation. I believe Cajun softball is way up there too, and that they had just taken at least a game or maybe a series from Oklahoma. Is that right? At least a game.
Yeah, but Lady Bobcats, go get them.
Yeah. Oops. Let's see. Tuesday will be a doozy for A-State baseball as we face the number 1 ranked team in the nation in Arkansas. Yeah, we won't quite get that far ahead. But yeah, that will be one heck of a tough matchup, but a really fun one. If they could pull that off, that would be pretty great. Darius Garland saying, love me some Sunbelt Syndicate. We appreciate it, man. I don't know what that graphic is though. I'm not sure what he's got there. Some kind of crazy looking artwork, maybe some personal artwork he's done there. But yeah, well, we appreciate the love, and we'll jump back in as we had Georgia Southern surprising Southern Miss taking the series 2-1. First 2 games had a lot of runs, and then we had a pitching duel on the last one, guys.
Yeah, the last game. So the pitcher for Georgia Southern got named Sunbelt Pitcher of the Year, of the week, complete game. Only gave up 4 hits, struck out 7. That was his 5th complete game of his career, which is pretty awesome. And the guy he went up against, I can't remember his name, but the guy for Southern Miss threw a gem that day too. Just when you got a series tied 1-1 going to Sunday, that's the kind of game you want to see.
Oh, absolutely. I know there was some heat in this one. Forget what they call themselves. It's not Cameron Crazies, obviously, because that's the Duke thing. But there's an account on Twitter that calls themselves it's something C Crazies. Big Georgia Southern fans, big Georgia Southern baseball fans. He likes to talk a little trash on that account, and Southern Miss was going at him pretty good because Southern Miss has it. For those of you who don't understand this and follow this, if you want to talk some trash about baseball, don't go at Southern Miss. They will destroy you on Twitter. They will kill you on Twitter. The only one that's probably anywhere close as far as Twitter battles is concerned is the Cajuns. I've seen their fans get up and destroy people as well. But those 2 fan bases are ones you do not want to mess with. Coastal Carolina has some fans, but they don't have the numbers. Cajuns and Southern Miss have the numbers. It's a numbers game, solely a numbers game. You will just get obliterated in multiple ways. So don't try them. Trust me, I've seen enough of it. You don't want to go that route. But this one was definitely a surprise there. Artie saying the first game was a complete blowout. Yeah, it was. I definitely did not expect Georgia Southern to run rule anybody really at this point. Maybe like a lower division team that they were playing or something. But
that second game, Southern Miss was down 4-1 going into the 7th inning. The bottom of the 7th. They scored 8 runs in the last 3 innings. So, those bats don't get hot at the right time. It could have been a sweep, but, super surprised. Once again, Seth, who is Georgia Southern? What is this team?
Yeah.
I think that's what we text about every weekend. Who is this team? I don't think they're a Louisiana Monroe, but I also don't think they're – I would sit here and say they're not a Southern Miss, but they just took 2 or 3 from Southern Miss. So it's I don't know. Who does Georgia Southern have next week, Dom?
I got to
look at that right now. We have Troy for Southern Miss.
Whew. That's
Georgia Southern's got Arkansas State. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we'll find out a lot about both teams.
I agree.
In Jonesboro.
Do agree. We'll talk about Troy's struggles this past weekend, but yeah, those 2 teams on the right are fighting to right.
Be a good one too.
Yeah, they're definitely fighting to right the ship, and then the guys on the left are fighting for where are we going to start heading? Which direction are we going to start trending in the conference, up or down?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a concern about the teams on the right doing that with Southern Miss and Troy. I think they'll both trend upward, but it's going to be who wins this series will obviously have a big advantage in that regard. So be interesting. But these 2 might be
hop off here and hop right back on, fellas.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good. These 2 right here, Marv, I think I mean, these might be two of the better matchups of the weekend, really, though. I mean, with what it means to all four teams, right? Like, maybe you're not going to get the best of baseball, maybe, I guess, but I mean, it's still going to be quality. And I think both teams, or all four teams here, have a big reason to win their series this weekend.
I mean, if Arkansas State loses their series, they've got a large mountain to climb. And Georgia Southern, they're 3-3. Southern Miss just coming off losing two. They definitely don't want to lose another one. That's in Southern Miss this weekend, but I'm really more interested in Southern Miss Troy. I think that's the second best series of the weekend. You've got Texas State and Louisiana this weekend. I think that's probably in my opinion. Actually, heck, I'll take that back. Southern Miss Troy and Texas State Louisiana. That's a battle for the top.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And Artie's agreeing kind of with us, must wins kind of all the way around for all four teams. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it feels like that for the teams on the left. Again, I think the teams on the right are gonna be okay, but yeah, I mean, you don't want to start. You don't want to get a sweep. Neither one of those teams can really afford that. So
I'm taking Georgia Southern two games to 1 on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that as well. I don't disagree with that.
Nice. All right. Well, speaking of Georgia State, not Southern, as they famously say there in Atlanta, or Southern, not State, depending on where you're at. But Georgia State, again, like we said, jumping up towards the top of the conference after winning the series over ULM 2-1. You had ULM, had 3 straight losses coming in. Did I have that down right? Either way, they weren't the hottest team coming in. They haven't had a great overall record so far this year. They win the first game 13-10, so just the opposite of a pitcher's duel in that one. But then Georgia State kept that kind of run scoring going all weekend by scoring 13 and then 11. Who has Georgia State on that side of the ball?
I think that's me. I didn't watch any of this series. I just kind of kept up with the game tracker. First game looks like it was a really good game. Second game, Georgia State just jumped on them. It was 11-2 after 4 innings. They just kind of coasted. And the third game it was pretty similar. Way to bounce back for Georgia State. I mean, you lose, you give up 13 runs in the first game, and then come back and score 24 and only give up 7. So there you go.
Yeah. And this is a good note by Artie. He said, watch this series due to weather delays, probably for his Texas State Bobcats. He says ULM's not horrible, but they are inconsistent. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. 13 runs one game, then 4, then 3. I mean, reads just like he wrote it, just can't seem to put it all together there. So, yeah, you got the tale of two teams here. I would have assumed, you wipe the slate and you don't tell me who was good and bad this year. I would assume this was a fight towards the bottom of the conference, and now you've got Georgia State up there at the top and ULM down there at the bottom. So, yeah, interesting series, especially after it's all said and done, to see where both teams are in the standings currently. And speaking of both teams,
do we know who was Georgia State's first series against?
Georgia State's first series was, South Alabama.
Okay. So we don't know entirely a lot about Georgia State just yet.
Yeah.
Not enough to know that they belong at the top is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, are they going to be a mainstay? Yeah, I think that's hard to say that they will be. Not because they don't have the quality of the middle of the pack and the lesser teams, but I don't know if I can see them competing towards the top for much longer, to be honest, right? I mean,
right. I think
anybody else think we're wrong on that?
No, I think a weekend series with JMU. JMU is another team we're trying to figure out, who they really are. I think. Did Texas State take two or three from JMU? Was that right?
Yes, JMU did get 1. JMU's famous for taking 1 to avoid being swept.
this is another series. I think this coming weekend we're going to be able to tell a lot about these middle of the pack teams. I think we kind of know who's at the top and who's going to be at the top, and we're trying to figure out who our 5, 6, and 7 is going to be. So this weekend's going to tell us a lot about Sun Belt baseball.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
If Georgia State takes 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 from JMU, I'm going to have to start believing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say ULM takes 1 from Coastal too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ooh, bold predictions.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm not convinced on Coastal just yet, fellas.
I think Coastal fans aren't convinced on Coastal just yet. From what I've seen on the Twitterverse, there was a couple guys who were really unhappy with the pitching being real inconsistent thus far. I will say this, what I have read, and, this is internet fodder, so take it for what it's worth, as it's not fact. It could be some type of, overly done thought on something, but apparently there was a flu or cold of some sort that was running through Coastal's roster, probably affected them. Plus, they're playing up in Boone in colder climate. Did that get the best of them?
Probably COVID.
Yeah. COVID Carolina continues to strike.
Hey, Seth, if App sweeps Marshall, does that change your opinion on Coastal?
No, because I don't believe Marshall's worth of shit either, to be honest with you. Just to be honest with you. A sweep of Coastal is not telling me, a sweep of Marshall is not telling me much at all about. I don't know. Marshall's not terrible. I mean, I would expect App to at least take 2 or 3.
Yeah, they've got good pitching.
They got great pitching.
Yep. Hey, the pitching seems to be there. Yep.
Hey, Tuthill's getting his first weekend start in 2 years tomorrow.
That's big.
Wow.
Clayton, North Carolina, what's up?
There we go.
Didn't he get a start a couple weeks ago and got rattled pretty early? Was it Duke? Did he throw against Duke?
He went against Duke, but he wasn't the starter that night.
No, he came in at a really bad spot in the first. Gave up a couple in the first, but I don't think all of them were earned. And then in the second and third, he really kind of settled us back into the game. He started last Tuesday against Queens and looked okay. But for him to get a series start against one of the Marshall weekend guys, that's a big deal for him, because Marshall's Friday and Saturday guys look to be pretty darn good. Even though it's weird this weekend they're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday because of Easter. But yeah, pretty excited to see him get on the mound. Yeah.
The as Marv said, just as a reminder to all the fans out there not paying full attention just yet because you're so used to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It is Thursday, Friday, Saturday this weekend, as they won't go for Easter Sunday. That happens again. I think it's Mother's Day weekend. They typically do that too, or maybe they play that. There's a weekend in May, I feel like, though, that they don't go Sunday or something. Anyway, is that Memorial Day? Or?
Team I'm buying low on, fellas. I'm gonna take a wild shot on Texas State right here.
What you got?
I think they're a sleeper. I mean, I think they're going to be something. I think they're going to be in our top 4 at least by the end of the year, top 5 at least.
100%.
Since you're rolling with Tech, Artie's favorite team to start with, he says Hall had a first complete game in 2 years for the Cats. We played bad in Game 3. Bad weather. Yeah, I think I had heard that Texas State was expecting bad weather most of the weekend there. Hard to sweep any team. No, I absolutely agree with that. I think that's what we've seen a lot of in this conference thus far. And when you've seen even the results from the midweek, obviously that's not a series, but the results on some of the teams that have played each other 2 times and, a week or 2 apart, and you've got two different teams winning in some of those games too. It's not easy to beat any team twice. Let alone sweep them 3 times in a row. So, yeah, also, as we've said many, many times, this conference is not easy. It's not easy in basketball. It's not easy in football. And it's definitely probably the toughest, I'd say, really, in baseball. I don't know. I think we'd all agree that basketball is probably like the lesser of all the sports in this conference as far as the men's sports are concerned. Football is the top dog, but baseball, as far as competitiveness, may just be number one. Early thoughts on that one this year for you guys.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think if you look at football, like the Sun Belt East is a beast. But if you look all through baseball, since there is no East-West, I mean, Marshall's the worst team in the conference, and Marshall could beat any team in the conference.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think it's also competitive. I mean, because there's so many games played. Like Artie was saying, it's hard to sweep any team. Like even if Louisiana or even if Monroe took one game from Coastal, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised. I mean, I think even though there are so many games, that doesn't discredit how much talent there is in this league. Like he was saying, Marshall, even if they finish at the bottom, I mean, that's still a pretty decent baseball team. I mean, now if Marshall swept App this week, yeah, that'd be a huge surprise. Or even if Marshall took 2 or 3 from App, that's a huge surprise. But there's so many games being played with so many talented teams. I think that's the reason you're seeing 4 to possibly 5 teams making a regional.
Yeah. I think one thing that will have to happen for us to have 5 teams, honestly, is that these bottom teams start to lose a lot.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You're talking about a little bit of separation.
Yep. You need your top teams to be hammering these teams 3-0. That's the bottom line of it.
So with all these people jumbled together, is not what you're saying doesn't look that great just yet.
No, I don't think the conference will get the respect it needs or deserves if that continues to happen, unfortunately. I think they'll just be like, oh, none of them are any good. Instead of saying they're all really good, they'll say the opposite.
For instance, Southern Miss losing a series to Georgia Southern doesn't look good for anybody. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. What you need to do is
Southern goes and sweeps their next 4 series.
Right.
Yeah. That one depends heavily on what happens in the next week or two about how that kind of looks when you look backward.
Coastal having 3 of 6 losses already to start the conference. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Everybody's beating up everybody, but there is no clear-cut 2 or 3, that stands up above everybody else. So, what you're saying makes complete sense.
Yeah, like this series, this one with Texas State and James Madison is a great example of what I mean too. Is like Texas State has gone up and played some really big programs and beaten them early this season. Then they've had some kind of not so great losses. There would have been a big sway in people's thought process and opinions had they swept this series instead of just winning it 2-1.
Right.
Now they didn't get beat badly in that last game on Sunday by James Madison, but they did lose it. As Artie said, weather had a lot to do with it. If people know those things, that helps them understand. But let's be honest, there's a lot of baseball played in a lot of different areas all at the same time. It's impossible to watch all these games. So they're just going to see a scoreboard, and they're just going to see 7-5 and 2-1 instead of 3-0. And it doesn't matter. If Texas State sweeps this series 3-0, they don't even look at the individual game scores, is my bet, right? They just say, hey, this team's really good, and they beat somebody 3-0. Yeah. So you got to have your better teams continuing to do those types of performances, and you have to let your bad teams be bad. We're not cheering for anything specific on teams like that besides our favorite team, but that's what you're going to have to see, especially towards this is why Louisiana went on a run towards the end of last season, because they just kept beating everybody right at the end there and then continuing it into the Sun Belt Conference tournament, which put them into the regionals, because before the tournament started, there was a lot of people thinking they were going to be one of those first teams out. And you're talking about the bracketology for basketball. All right, enough about that. Let's get into who they played this week. James Madison matches up with Georgia State. Texas State, as Marv said earlier, matches up with the Cajuns. And now that we're seeing this one in our faces, I agree with Marv. That one's number one on the must-see TV list for the weekend.
In San Marcos, hottest team in the Sun Belt going to San Marcos. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Poindexter is saying they call it the Fun Belt for a reason. They absolutely do. Unpredictable, talented, lots of fun to watch. So if you aren't actually tuning into the games, again, we know they're impossible to watch all of them. Tune into your favorite team at least, because They're pretty much all on the ESPN Plus platform.
So, Dominic, not to keep harping on your last point, but if you're looking at this series as in for the better of the conference, are you saying Louisiana sweeps this or Texas State at least takes 2 or 3 from a hot team? I mean, what's your opinion on this one?
So you got Louisiana sitting at 5-1, Texas State 4-2 conference wise.
A toss up for the conference either way? Well,
I think you want it to, if you're looking for postseason stuff and you're thinking about it that early, you want this series to go 2-1 either way. You don't want to sweep because that makes one team look bad, right? If you ask me what needs to happen, is Texas State needs to be the one that wins this one 2-1. If you're looking at it from an outside perspective, saying what needs to happen to continue to, Louisiana's been on an 8-game run. Okay, if they go on a 2-game losing streak, but they get one, they're going to be just fine. They're still going to be sitting pretty. They're probably still going to be at the top of the conference at that point. Texas State then jumps up there to be up there close to them. Now you're just talking about these two teams being more even than the Cajuns taking 2 of 3, dropping Texas State further back, elevating the Cajuns even further, and creating that separation there between two teams who are probably still towards the top of the conference as far as talent wise go.
If Texas State takes 2 or 3, they'll be tied with the Louisiana conference record. If Louisiana takes 2 or 3, they kind of separate themselves from everybody for potential weekend, depending on what Georgia State does. I mean, Georgia State could easily take 2 or 3 from JMU and still be sitting right there tied for first. I mean, but like you kind of said, there's differences in what some of these conference records look like. You know, Cajuns or Texas State wins 2 or 3, to me that looks a heck of a lot better than Georgia State taking 2 or 3 from JMU.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Artie's making mention that they play Texas A&M midweek as well. So there you go. I mean, if they don't get the better of this series, but they go in there and they somehow beat Texas A&M, which isn't going to be easy. Let me pull up Texas A&M. Are they number 4 currently right now? So that will be a huge win for them. He's saying, after the Cajuns, obviously, he's predicting the Cats win this series 2-1. I'm not going to put a prediction on it yet in case we do this one for the weekend, because I think that's a top one that we want to put on our board.
You got to do that one, then Troy Southern Miss, and then throw another one in there. There's Troy Southern Miss and this one. I mean, that's kind of the top separators right now.
Yeah. And I think we talked about the Georgia Southern series being on there too, right? Didn't we?
Who they got again? Southern's Arkansas State.
Mainly because of the toss-up aspect. Like, I think, like, for the App Marshall series, we expect App to win that one at least 2-1, hopefully 3-0 for our sake. The ULM series with Coastal, we'd expect Coastal to either sweep or win that one 2-1. I was trying to pick some ones that would be really difficult to pick a winner. That's not necessarily saying it's the best one to watch.
South Alabama, ODU, and JMU, Georgia State, and Southern Arkansas State are some of those that you just kind of flip a coin, and whichever way you call it lands, you pick them 2-1 and just stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we got a question here. We'll come back to that real quick. Ben James is asking our opinion on A-State basketball. So we'll just quickly cover that because we did talk about basketball at the start. We did mention them because they were in the CBI tournament. They did lose to High Point last night in the semifinals. Well, championship is tonight between Seattle and
High Point.
High Point, yeah. I just mentioned that one. So, yeah, I mean, I think they got hot at the right time. So, to me, they're very similar to what South Alabama presented last season in basketball, which was not great throughout the season, but you knew they had talent. For those that watched the basketball series and heard what I had to say, I always said Arkansas State was dangerous. And why were they dangerous? Because they're the best three-point shooting team in the conference, and they were throughout much of the season. So I knew this was a team you did not want to match up with come tournament time. I kept saying that. And, of course, App State matches up with them. They didn't even shoot lights out from 3 in that game, honestly. They just played more solidly than App State did. I wasn't really impressed with any of App State's performances down the stretch, to be totally honest with you. The last 3 straight losses they had, none of them were impressive, which is unfortunate. With A-State, obviously, Yeah. With A-State, they did the exact opposite. They actually really impressed me because they kept it rolling for so long. And then last night, you're talking about a controversial ending on a non-foul call to only lose by 1 point. Still made money on FanDuel on that one. They covered the spread of 2.5. So I was good with it.
Sports are tough, man. Like, for example, like opening day for baseball is tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
I'm still
stateside. It is. They started in Japan this year, right? Is that what happened?
Korea, the Seoul Series, the Padres and the Dodgers.
Sports are tough, man. It really tests your fandom watching 162 games of the best offense in the entire major league just to blow it in a 5-game series. You know, I mean, or you spend every cold winter night going to a basketball game to watch your team dominate to absolutely just blow it in the conference tournament. I mean, it's so disappointing sometimes to follow all the way through the season and get to the end of the year. And, you know, would you almost rather your team be mediocre like Arkansas State and then you know what I'm saying? Like, at least, Jay, I'm just spitballing what I think. I mean, it's tough watching baseball, 162 games and blow it in a 5-game series. But I guess that's, you know, that World Series a couple years ago makes it all worth it. But just like at basketball, man, you follow them all year, you go to the games, and then you think you have a chance, and you just know JMU's still sitting there at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is spoken like a true Dallas Cowboys fan right there.
That's what I'm getting at, Marv. Yeah. 17 games, 16 games of just pure hell every year.
Well, I think that's a roundabout way of getting around it to it, Seth. I do completely understand what you're talking about, though, because think about what we felt when App State was not very good throughout the regular season and then made the NC. Well, I mean, I don't know if you consider it making the NCAA tournament when they're in the first 4, but the COVID year, they made it. They played Norfolk State. I was just as excited, if not more so excited, because they made it. Again, I don't know if you're officially saying they made it to the big dance. I give a damn about the regular season at that point, right? So the regular season's great to celebrate the first regular season championship since 71 or whatever it was.
Right.
That's cool. Ultimately, it means next to nothing. And now you're seeing a mass exodus at App. So for Arkansas State, they are the opposite. They are trending in the right direction because
exactly. I would much rather, like you said, I would much rather start building up all the way through the year and get to the end of the year rather than staying all the way up here. And what the hell happened way down here at the end come October? You know what I'm saying? Or come March. It's being a sports fan, man. I mean, especially not to keep going on basketball, but like, what's going on over there? Like, you have literally lost. This isn't just something to talk about for 5 minutes. Like, you have literally lost your entire team in 3 days. Like, your entire team is gone. Like, nobody. And so going back to Arkansas State, yes, I would much rather be in that kind of position where you're winning some games in March rather than be expected to win all these games and you just can't do it.
Yeah, and I think
that was a little bit of built-up frustration right there.
No, it's all good. No, that's why people tune in, man. They want to see those emotions, so all for it. But yeah, I mean, with the Arkansas State thing, they've got a little bit better of a situation, right? Like, you had Kearns either possibly or being rumored to be connected to another job. You had Byington and JMU who was out the door. You don't have those things happening with Arkansas State's head coach, Hodgkins, I think his name is, if I remember off the top of my head. I can picture him. I don't know if I'm nailing the name or not. But
such a double-edged sword. You know, right? It's such a double. Like, if you have success, then watch your back.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, if you're Georgia State, you don't have to worry about anything. You know, like, we got our coach unless he gets fired. You know,
I mean, or he leaves for a tight end position at a bigger school.
Everybody's worried about the next ASU football coach leaving. Like, Sean Clark ain't going nowhere unless somebody tells him to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just.
But you got to worry about your players leaving. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
How much at the end of the season we're like, holy crap, Joey's gone. Someone's going to come and offer him $500,000 and Joey's gone, or Nate Johnson's gone, or
you're looking at the biggest college football fan minus you two you'll ever meet in your entire life, and I promise you, within 2 years, I will not watch another single college football game. Like it's gotten to that point where it's ruined. Like it's ruined college football. It's ruining college athletics like altogether. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And when do you get to the point where you stop it? I mean, ratings start going down, then the money starts talking.
Yeah, when they quit printing money.
Yeah. I mean,
well, the other thing that I hated the idea of it or the thought process of it a while ago, and I'm starting to come around to it more now, is, considering these players to be employees of the institution that they, however you want to describe it, essentially being employees, though. They're being paid to be at the school to play the sports that they're playing. Hated it. Did not like that thought process or idea at all. But if you go to that type of structure, this movement doesn't happen the way it does. You still have to allow movement, and it will still occur in some form or fashion, but it won't be a free-for-all Wild West like we're seeing right now. And as much as, again, I don't really like the simple aspect of that, I still can't put my mind to that's what I want. But look at this conference and look where it gets poached from. It gets poached from the bigger schools, right? We saw it happen last year with basketball, possibly happening already again right now with basketball this year. Our football players that are good are sometimes getting poached out now too for these bigger programs that can give them more money, bigger donor bases. The Sun Belt can't compete on an out-and-out basis. You might be able to save one or two guys with some money. You ain't going to save 8 or 9. We don't have the money like Liberty and Duke and, Liberty is like a weird example. Right. Yeah. We are all 14 public education facilities, and I'm happy that we don't have a single private institution who can pull something like a Liberty does, right? Like unfair advantage. It's one of the many reasons that people hate Liberty so much is because they have all the tools at their disposal, because they're a diploma mill, off-campus factory mill of students. And I'm glad that we're sticking to like a structure that makes sense regionally, obviously, but also in the aspect of like no little tiny school like Wake Forest is going to come in here and be a part of this conference and be tiny, but they have all the money to compete. Like I hope we never bring that type of thing in because I just don't think it fits like the fan bases, everything else.
It just sucks knowing, especially not so much for baseball, but like knowing maybe for basketball and football, there will always be a ceiling. Like there will never, like you just know that ASU will never win 12 games every single year. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it may be, because I'll tell you what, it's a thousand wonders Joey Aguilar is still still in Boone. Like, it's amazing that he's still in Boone. I would count my blessings. And then Caden. And then what was the D tackle's name? The freshman?
Johnson.
Yeah. You just thank God they're still around. There will always be that ceiling, but give it one more 2 years, you start seeing success. It's cut off at the knees again because money talks. And the way things are today, can you really blame them though? Can you really blame them for taking more money as an 18 or 19-year-old?
No, that appeal is always going to be there. Number one, we talked about this, and I know we're going off on a tangent here. We're supposed to be talking baseball, but what it's going to do, you got to think of what the transfer portal NOL is going to do to high school recruiting in general. Even Austin said when he was on the podcast, the portal, you're going to have older and older teams, and you get away from that developmental thing, which, like I said, at App, that used to be our thing. Like, we would get guys that were overlooked, and we'd bring them in. We had great coaches. We develop, and now they're a great player. To go back to the other part, the amount of money that these colleges and the NCAA is making off of the name, image, NIL stuff, I think the players should be able to get paid. But where they really fumbled the ball on this is they should have capped it, made it more even. So your P5 schools can pay a player a max of X dollars per year, and your G5 schools can do that too, but we know that they'll never get there, but you cap it. Call it $100,000 a year. If you're 18, 19, 20 years old making $100,000 a year, you're going to piss that away at the bar anyway. Like, you're not – unless you're really smart, you're not setting yourself up for financial success in the future. But then when they made the unlimited transfers, that's the dumbest thing on the face of the earth. So now it's not about, where do I see myself going to school? You used to ask yourself if you were getting recruited, if I got injured, where can I see myself being for the next 4 years of my life, and where can I get a diploma that's going to help me be successful? Now it's, hey, what school's going to call next week and offer me the most money? It's absolutely, there's no allegiance to anything anymore. It's just a big fat money grab. And the NCAA, who tries to have so much control, when the big boys came and pushed the buttons, they have no control. They're a shell company at best. They're a legislative arm of nothing, and it's they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. It's once again, I'm all for paying the players. I think you got to cap it, one-time transfer, point blank, period, and that's my 2 cents.
It's like Dominic said, the Wild Wild West. Where does it end? Like, the only way it will ever end is if people stop going to games and people stop watching it on TV. That's the only way it will ever end.
You hear people say, "Well, the big four conferences in football will just break away from the NCAA and they'll be unregulated." No, they won't. They'll just all go to the NFL and get real money at that point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
If you're like an Ohio State fan or Georgia fan, it's not affecting you. It will affect you, but it's not affecting you anywhere near like these teams in the Sun Belt, Right. You're getting rich every single day. You're getting rich with talent, while other schools are just, the teams like App, Georgia Southern, whoever it may be, nobody's wanting to. It's killing the little man. It sucks. And whoever asked this question, damn you, because it's already so late. But it's. It's a fair point. He didn't even ask anything about NIL. I guess Marv went down that road. But no, it's something we could sit here and talk about for 3 hours and not even get a dent in it. It's ridiculous, and thank goodness we haven't seen it in baseball yet. But
right, with
success, it will come. So,
you think there's any like Ponzi scheme, money laundering things going on in these NIL collectives?
Oh no, never.
Funny how some of these colleges, I don't know if it came out a couple years ago. They were talking about the budgets, the athletic budgets for a lot of these schools, and I think I specifically remember Texas. Like, their athletic budget was, I'm going to make up a number, like $177 million is how much they brought in, but they showed a zero profit. It's like, where'd all that money go? Because if we can run our entire athletic department on $32 million and you're spending 5 times that. Now, I get it. Your stadiums are bigger and you pay your coaches more, but if your stadium's bigger, you're getting more people in the seats and you're charging more money for the seats, so you're bringing in more revenue. Like, where's all this money really going, guys?
Yeah. Yep. There is no doubt about that. As Seth said, we are going to try and keep it moving on. We will get to James' other comments. They did just get an Ole Miss transfer for basketball. Those are still going to happen. I feel like I'm not saying that like those types of moves won't happen, but
yeah, but usually the talent you're getting from, not to say anything about the Ole Miss kid, but that's a kid that's not playing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not getting a kid that's starting every night transferring to a lower tier team.
There's no kid in the ACC dropping 22 points. Like, man, App's roster just got devastated. Let me go play there.
Now, whoever lands, Absent and Harcum and thank God, Xavier Brown's gone. But whoever lands those guys, they're getting rich, while App's getting poor. Just because if you're getting a guy from Ole Miss, that doesn't mean. I'm sorry, but it just sucks. I'm a little butthurt about the basketball thing this week. So, along with the parking at the baseball game. So.
Yeah. He's saying A-State's women's bowling earned their 16th straight selection to national tournament and being number 2 overall seed. I know nothing about bowling, but congratulations on that.
How did we miss that?
Not an easy thing to do for that long.
Syndicate right there is women's bowling. Let's get it.
Yeah, we'll do live on location for that. I know nothing. I'm terrible bowling. I can throw it straight, but I don't have any of that like fancy curve stuff. Anyway, the only discrepancy, this is what Artie's saying here, the only discrepancy that could occur in the Sun Belt would be the 2 major metro, Texas State and Georgia State programs, being able to get more NIL money from businesses, etc. But I personally don't see that coming. Yeah, actually, though, I will say Texas State's way closer to that than Georgia State is. I don't think Georgia State has any pull like that in the Atlanta market at this current moment.
Texas businesses are going to give to A&M and Houston and the Longhorns before they give to Texas State?
I do. However, all it takes, and we've kind of seen this with like the Boise State aspect, right? Like if Boise was in a more business-centered market, it's not the same. You're right. I mean, Boise doesn't have the competition there like Texas State does. However, one New Year's Six Bowl for Texas State, then you're looking at a lot of people wanting to just all of a sudden become involved because all the eyes are going to be there. And when you do have one of those successful seasons at the G5 level, typically you're good for at least another year or two before it really dies down. Not saying you get back to that same spot.
Are you talking about winning 3 national championships in a row and everybody becoming a football fan all of a sudden? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, one of those things, one of those deals.
I'm
Seth,
just airing it all out tonight, fellas. Airing it all out tonight.
What was App State football like before that? Could you just like mosey in there and like throw a football on the sidelines and they just let you hang out?
Bro, I could not tell you how many 3-on-3, 5-on-5 football games I had in the middle of an ASU game on the field or on the hill every Saturday. I could care less who won the game as long as I was at the game with my buddies playing football, And then fans like you guys came along and nobody cared about football.
Hey, you hold up. I was there for the I transferred to App from East Carolina in 2003. So I was there. I can remember this is no joke. It was 2005 season. It was before we won our first national championship. My parents came up for Parents Weekend. It's when Richie completed like 27 straight passes against Furman. We had a really fun time at tailgate, and we got to the game at the end of the first quarter, and we were able to get 35-yard line seats in the student section at the end of the first quarter. At an App State football game, if you're not in the student section an hour before kickoff, you are not sitting in the student section. So, that's been a build since 2004 to where we are now. I can remember when I was still a student in 2006, you could kind of get there right around kickoff and still get a spot. But, App State football has changed significantly, and that's what winning does. I mean, look at this stadium.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
I'm not trying to go down a tangent, but I already am. Like Dominic, we were talking about like recruiting. Like, how does NIL affect recruiting? Do you still recruit kids out of high school, or is it more? Are you focused more on the portal at this point? Because the reason I ask that is like, let's say App lost their top receiver, running back. For basketball, for example, let's just say football lost everything. Does that fall back on your coach? Because you recruited those kids. You did a heck of a job getting those kids on campus, but then you lose those kids, and because of that, you lose an extra 2 or 3 games that you probably wouldn't have if you had that talent. You see what I'm saying? Like, who does that fall back on? I mean, is it because you got the kids on campus, but you couldn't? It wasn't the coach's fault that he couldn't pay them because whatever Clemson was paying them.
Well, I think it's a little bit of 2 things, right? I mean, if you lose 1 or 2 guys because you just can't afford to pay them, that's not going to fall on the coach, right? That's on those kids wanting to do what's best for them and their families. And I personally don't hate anything like that because I would do the same. So I can't hate on somebody who I would probably do the exact same thing with. One thing that I always hate real quick is, they're not loyal. Some of these kids never even heard of your school before they got brought in there and got an offer.
I hate that you're not loyal because I've seen fan bases turn on their favorite players after a couple bad games. So you're not loyal, so you can't blame them for being loyal.
Yeah, that's another great point.
Look what App State fans did to Zach Thomas, one of the greatest quarterbacks. He has a off season during a COVID year when he could have came back the next year, and he was so sick of hearing the bull crap that he left. And he's not loyal. That dude was that man bled black and gold, and y'all ran his ass off.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, but actually, we'll just loop this into one of Ben's other comments real quick. College football players need to take note because no college basketball player opted out of the tournament. I don't think that's one and the same, to be honest with you. These guys get the most views they've ever seen during the tournament. So, no, you're not going to see – I would be shocked if any college basketball player ever opted out of a tournament the situation is different too, right? You can be, is it one and done still in college to get to the pros? It's just 1 year you got to put in, right?
Yes, okay. It is. And,
so
it's also a little bit different, Don, where like if you're a top player from Ohio State and you go to the Sugar Bowl to play Missouri, you're not playing for a national championship. You're guaranteed millions of dollars while risk it. But if you're a top player for a pretty decent program and you're in the tournament, you got a chance to win a national championship. You better go play.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
but that's bullcrap. I thought you were committed to your team a minute ago. You know, what if Zach Thomas had set out a bowl? Is he still bleeding black and gold?
Why you got to go theoretical?
I hate the idea of sitting out bowl games. Like, dude,
I hate it.
By the time I get off this podcast, I will never watch another college football game the rest of my life. Like, the more I talk about it, the more ridiculous it has absolutely become. This has topped the parking at baseball for me. This conversation. Thanks to you guys.
Oh man.
All right, we gotta get back to baseball. We gotta get back.
Yeah. So we'll
back to the baseball.
Yeah. Artie says it just takes one. George Strait could donate some cash. Come on, George. Yeah, that would be huge. I'm sure that App fans are hoping that our country music stars, both of them, wink, wink, would continue.
Just one.
Wait, no.
Eric Church is not part of this. No.
Well,
no.
He could be.
Adam Church maybe, but not Eric Church.
Eric Church money.
Eric Church can no. He's no.
He's a Carolina fan. Everybody knows that.
It starts with a C. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Big James is saying big game for A-State football in 25 season when they play Arkansas for the first time ever in the sport, and it's been 80 years in the making. Yeah, and we love those matchups, and we're definitely going to be cheering for Arkansas State in that one. That's for sure.
Arkansas State never played Arkansas in football?
I did not realize that, but that is huge then. Texas State football is already doing NIL, and players are saying it's enough to concentrate on football. Well, so I'm sure there's decent money for the Sun Belt. I think there's decent money.
It's a scary football team.
Yeah, well, I think there's also money in Texas.
Well,
so a little bit different than your Marshalls and James Madisons of the world when it comes to those.
And you don't have us on the football podcast because it'd be 4 hours long.
Oh, we'll do some type of roundtable, but I don't have more than 2 mics, so we'll have to work on that when we get closer to football season.
Hey, real quick, I want to point out some stats here. This is crazy on this series. As you can see, Old Dominion scores 1 run the entire series. They had 9 hits the entire series. That's it.
Wow. I'll give you another stat on this one. ODU had won 4 of their last 5 coming into the series, averaging 8 runs per game, and they come in here, like you said, very few hits, 1 run on the weekend in total. Game 1 had 11 total hits, so that was quite the pitcher's duel. All the runs by the Cajuns scored in the 5th inning, and Langvin, I hope I'm not destroying that name, but he was the pitcher in that game 1, now 3-0 on the season, stays perfect. DeBarge continues to go off, had a great weekend for the Cajuns overall. If you watch a broadcast with the Cajuns in it and you don't hear the name DeBarge like 16 times, there's something wrong, because that kid is phenomenal and he just does everything very, very well. Even if it's like, I think the one game he had like 1 hit, but he had 1 run batted in and like a couple other statistics that helped towards the team. And he still was like making plays on the defensive effort. So, yeah, just phenomenal weekend for the Cajuns to round back into form. I know ODU came in thinking they were going to take at least 1 in this one, but I think there was some of their fans who thought they had the run support to take 2 of 3, and no shot. So
that's hard to do when you only get 9 hits and a Cajun pitcher struck out 29 batters this weekend. Yeah. That pitching that was good.
Yeah, ODU was only using, I think, in the game 1 and 3, we used like 2 to 3 pitchers. In that middle game there was 13-1. I think they put like 5 or 6 or 7 guys on the mound trying to stop the bleeding in that 7-inning game. Didn't help them that much there, but and again, we've got baseball fans in general tuning in, and James is saying he knows it's not Sunbelt related, but Central Arkansas alum Gavin Stone starts again St. Louis on Sunday night baseball this weekend. So, yeah.
Ben, we don't like to get off topic around here. Sorry. Sorry, man. We'll keep it strictly to Sunbelt baseball.
Yeah, strictly Sunbelt baseball. We're going to rename it strictly Sunbelt baseball. Ari Cat is saying beat Lafayette and their new mascot, Roadkill the Alligator. They are looking for a mascot. They're definitely looking for one. I don't know if they'll like the roadkill aspect of it. So, yeah, they do match up with Texas State, as we've already talked about. I think this is the only matchup now that we haven't yet talked about, which is Old Dominion matching up with South Alabama. I don't know. I don't know what to predict here. South Alabama gets swept by Georgia State. ODU gets swept by the Cajuns. Not saying those are equal, but I really don't know what to make of that series either. Anybody got any further thoughts on those two games?
So that series is at Old Dominion. I toss a coin. If it lands on heads at South Alabama, tails it's Old Dominion, you pick that team, go 2-1. I mean, that's
agreed.
Yeah, the only thing I think is they're playing at home. They had the run support before this past weekend when they played a really good and a really hot Cajun team. Maybe that comes back.
I think that series was at ODU, though. I think they got swept at home. I could be incorrect.
I think – let me scroll back up here. That was in Lafayette.
Okay.
That was down in Lafayette.
That makes a lot more sense. Then I'm going Old Dominion 2-1 to rebound at home.
I would favor that as well. Ben's putting up Red Wolves for life. So, let's see. Going back, do we have another? Yeah. We had South Alabama versus Troy. These two teams, these two programs, these two schools, fan bases, everything hate each other. This is the App State, Georgia Southern level for those of us in the East that know that one. So this one was surprising.
10,000 people in those three games combined.
I did not fix this graphic either. I did terrible on the graphic game this week. The stuff on the right is correct. The series did not get swept by anybody. South Alabama took this series 2-1.
Yeah.
I think what I did, I started focusing on these score graphics, and I forgot to go back and update a few of these series.
Now that I see that, I'm taking it back. South Alabama 2-1. Coming off a series win at Troy. I mean, that's impressive.
It is impressive.
Yeah.
It is impressive. And not only that.
People.
How many?
10,000 between the three games, they said.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
There you go. This is and Artie's throwing it up there. Yeah. Again on the side, it's correct. Should be 2-1, not 0-3. Did not update that. I'll do better. I literally proofread some of these, and I guess I just focused on the scores on the right instead of going through the stuff on the overall series. Anyway, I mean, this is you're talking about that many people at a baseball game. This is what the Sun Belt was built on.
Yeah.
Teams and fan bases people care about, and that's what's going to keep us rolling through. I mean,
just a couple quick notes I had on that one. So in game one, South Alabama scores 5 in the top of the ninth to win that baseball game. 4 home runs hit in that game. I think it was 2 by each squad. In the second game, it was 7-0 going into the 6th. Then South Alabama gave up 5 to make it super close and then ran away with it. 26 total hits in the game. South Alabama had 3 home runs in the first 2 innings to jump out to that big lead. And then in the second game, also Troy's pitching staff had 13 strikeouts. It's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Got 13 strikeouts, still give up 10 runs.
Yeah. Well, I think after what we're seeing and what you just talked about in those first 2 games that South Alabama took and what they just did in the midweek, you can start calling South Alabama the cardiac cats with the way they battled back to win some of these games or make them closer than they should have in that second game, like you spoke about, where they were up a little bit and then let them come back there. But, jumping into this weekend, I think we talked about all the matchups at this point. But, South Alabama, ODU, Troy goes up against – what? That's not even – is that what I want? Yeah, Troy does go up against Southern Miss. I thought I got the wrong team on that part too. Oh man. One thing we will not do is what Ben is asking us to do. Y'all should do some outside of the league. We take up an hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes of people's time. We cannot continue to add more things to this show.
And the
next week's the Tigers. I mean, it's a circus every week. So next week, well, the acrobats. We'll add the acrobats next week, and then the Tigers and the elephants are the week after.
Can't do that stuff anymore, man. The circus has changed. I went the other month. Can't have any live animals.
Let's go JUCO baseball next week.
Oh, I'm down. We can do some high school too if you want.
We could do JUCO football and get Cam Newton on the show. That'll bring in the people.
We should have covered Watauga's women's run to the state 4A Western Finals. We could have done that too.
We're going to go back to when you were at Watauga, Seth, and we're going to cover what you guys did at your time there.
I got some black and white pictures somewhere from when I was there.
All right, so we are now towards the end of the show. As we know, or as some of you may not know because you're just tuning in for the first time ever, we do our picks every week. I sat this one out because Chad had done. Yeah, I stretched myself out. Celebrity pick done by Chad Dickens, who tied. But a nice job by Seth here. To go two, they both go 2-1 on the week. Marv goes, oh, you pulled a Dominic there, Marv. What the hell are you doing?
What kind of a buddy? I must have already been in Mexico drinking tequila to take Old Dominion 2-1 over the Cajuns. I can double check that, but I thought I double checked everything multiple times, but I don't know.
According to your graphics, you really checked them 3 times.
yeah, I should probably check it multiple times.
Yeah, fact check that, please.
All right, I'll do that. Maybe I did mess that one up, but either way, that would still put Chad and Seth as the winners of the week, tying for that 2-1 record. I'll leave it off. My picks will be 3 games off everyone else's after this weekend, but you've got Seth up there. Well, all right, it does change things because for the overall record, you and Seth could then be essentially tied as far as 10 games apiece. Seth would have one less. Oh, no, I guess because of your loss moving over. Yeah, you guys would be tied both at 10-8. So my dog is scratching the shit out of my carpet. Hey,
I think that Coastal Monroe series would be a fun one to pick because it's either 2-1 or 3-0. So let's pick that one too.
Oh, you want to go 4 this week? Hell, why don't we just start picking the whole conference slate?
Yeah, we're running out of graphic space here, fellas.
We're running out of things to talk about, right?
Yeah,
maybe next week we can talk about Louisiana's golf team.
We can always bring NIL back up.
Yeah, we're going to pick up a JUCO game, a high school game, a Sun Belt game.
Hey, we can do my kids' travel ball tournament.
We can start covering rec league baseball. I got you there.
Yeah.
That's the idea, Marv. I'm going to do another celebrity pick and let one of your kids make all my picks for me.
Don't let the oldest do it. He'll kill all of us.
There you go.
Moneyball's not allowed to pick.
Oh man. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up.
This was fun.
Yeah, we didn't do our players of the week, but we talked about the Sun Belt players of the week, so we still kind of covered it.
Yeah, we got them in.
Yeah. Anything else you guys? I mean, we talked about just about everything. We literally talked football, basketball, baseball, and some pro stuff mixed in there for the MLB aspect of things.
Hey,
Arkansas State, Georgia.
You think Ohtani was doing the betting and he's just trying to lay it off on his interpreter?
I actually believe Ohtani in that one. I think.
You believe?
But here's the thing: if it comes out he was. It'll be there's too much money to lose on Ohtani. It would be like when Jordan had to sit out to go play baseball. I don't believe he did. No, I don't.
So the weird thing is the only thing that I've seen, and again, I don't even know if this is factual because I haven't read like it's any other report than like something I've seen on social media. But if that is to be true, then it does look pretty damning because lots of money was placed on a certain aspect or a certain game that he was involved in, and then in some of those games he did not play well, and the money was placed on the other team to win. So it's like
$0.5 million.
Yeah.
Do you listen to Clay Travis at all?
Mm-mm.
He and this goes against what I was saying about this is an argument why it could have been Ohtani. Anytime you place a big bet, such as, $4 million, which there's only one out of the three of us that would be able to do it on here. Looking at Mexico guy, there's got to be some type of collateral there for somebody to take that bet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
An interpreter, they're not. What he was saying was, there's not an interpreter is not going to be able to, and maybe he's making that kind of money, but somebody backed that bet. So for somebody to take that bet as a bookie, there's got to be some type of collateral there. Like if you go to Vegas, they're going to give you a line of credit based on your finances. But what they were saying is there's got to, like I said, this goes against me believing that it wasn't him, but they were saying, yes, somebody else is behind it for there to be that much money involved. He knows something.
I hope he did it. So Pete Rose can get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. But see, Pete Rose never bet against his team. There's nothing, there's nothing betting against your team to win. I mean,
greatest ever, well, not the Hall of Fame.
Also, can we get to the point where like these dummies, if it was him, but just in general, like are giving their bets to somebody who's like further in relation so that it can't be tracked down? Like how are we letting these bets be played by people like so close to the situation? And when it's themselves, it's even dumber. Like stop.
Not in your hometown. Like, who would put $4.5 million on baseball bets in some city in Japan? Who's from that city in Japan?
Wasn't it just a few months ago? And I cannot remember if it was even college. It was college, I'm pretty sure. The idiot signed up for an account and used his real name. Do y'all remember that? It was just a couple.
It was the basketball player, I think, right?
I thought it was an NFL player, but yes, he
used it was a college player. He used his real name.
Yeah. Well, I think there was multiple kids. I think there was a kid on like Iowa that did it for football. And then there's a basketball kid who just got caught for doing something.
Pretty sure App had somebody too. No, who was it? App had somebody get suspended or kicked off for betting.
Huh.
Yeah. Not too.
I didn't know that.
Didn't know that either. Did we lose Seth? He's frozen. Oh, there he is.
All right, boys, let's wrap this. It's bedtime.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. It was a great episode.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, all night. But yeah, thank everybody for tuning in, and we will further expand the show for next week with everything. Check out collegefootballdogs.com, Dog TV, and W Sports SB Syndicate at checkout to throw us a bone, and we will see you all next time.